Welcome to Canine Conversations. I am your host, Robert Cabral. This is the beautiful Janet behind me. And today we have the superstar. Bozman is going to join me for today's podcast because we're going to talk about something very, very dear to my heart, and that is aging dogs. I did the last podcast on grieving the loss of your dog, which was super powerful and shared a lot of intimate stories about my life with Silly. And today I want to share a little bit more about my life with Bozman. And Bozman is in my life because of Janet. She rescued him 15, 16 years ago from the shelter in East Valley, or was it West Valley? One of those valley shelters. And Boz is an amazing dog. He's a little dachshund mix. Janet has done so much with him. He's done obedience titles and agility titles. He's an amazing, amazing, amazing boy. And we're going to talk, oh yes, Bozman. Oh, Bozman. We're going to talk about, what it is to love an old dog and what it is you should do with your older dogs and all these things, because I think it's so, so, so important. And you have to consider, what is an older dog? Some dogs might be old at 10. Some dogs might not be old till they're 17 or 18. So those are all things you're going to have to consider when you're dealing with this. And it's something you should kind of brace yourself for when you get a puppy. I mean, the people who rescue old dogs are... Boz is a wiggle worm, by the way. People who rescue, older dogs are saints in my books. I mean, if you have that in your heart, it's something that I wish I could do, and take these dogs and give them a great, last few days, months, years, or whatever. But it takes a special person to do that, just like it takes a real special dirtbag to dump an old dog in a shelter. So, Bozman. Buzz is sometimes he whines a little bit, and this is part of the thing with older dogs. You don't really know what they're going through. Sometimes they're in pain. Boz is not in pain. Boz is just a little fidgety. He was just outside. And Boz, like I said, he's 17 years old. He's right around 17 years old. You really don't know when you rescue a dog, but he's at least 17 years old because they said he was about a year old when Janet got him at the shelter, and she's had him for 16 years. And what an amazing life this dog has had. He's traveled all over the world with her. He's gone to so many different places, met so many different people. He's had such a great time in agility classes and meeting people and meeting other dogs. Goofy and him are best friends. Goofy's down here. Let me see if you can see Goofy right there. There's Goofy. Goofy's only been in his life for the last couple of years, but they're fast friends. Goofy watches over him, protects him, and all that stuff. And, the number one thing you want to think about when you have a puppy, or an older dog, I should say, is to be kind to them. Whoa! And be kind to them, be patient with them, because, again, like here, just like a puppy, they don't really know what's going on. They kind of lose sense of their sight and and hearing and stuff like that, and it makes life really a lot harder for them. You got to consider how confused they are, and then if they get displaced during that time, it's even worse for them. They just have a really, really, really hard time with things like that. So little dogs tend to live longer. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they tend to live longer than bigger dogs. Some dachshunds can go into their 20s, and some little dogs I've heard going up to 20, 21, 22 years old. I don't know what the world record is for an old dog. I thought it was close to 26 or something like that. Bigger dogs like shepherds, sadly, 12, 14 years is all you're going to get with them. But if you got a dog that you got as a puppy and it's getting older, there's some things you're going to want to think about. I want to talk about those things today. And if you got an older dog and you're taking care of it, then there's some things you need to be aware of there as well. And most of those things are going to be health issues, right? Because dogs are pretty resilient as far as most other things, but their health you'll start to see will go on. Like the bigger dogs, you can have things like their hip issues and their spinal issues and their issues of the joint issues because they're bigger. And especially if the dog worked hard during its whole life, whether it's running a lot or exercising a lot or anything like that, then Boz has always been a crazy wiggle worm. He just wants to go and go and go and go. And they get beat up less because they're smaller, little dogs, that is. Where big dogs, kind of, it's harder on them, and, standing up is harder on them and stuff like that. Boz is 17. He still goes zipping around the yard. He's blind and deaf, so he doesn't really know that he's running into stuff until he runs into it. And, I don't make a big deal about it. Janet doesn't either for the most part, but, it's one of those things where you don't really want the dog to think things are worse than they are for them. Boz needs help going up and down the stairs. We don't let him go up and down the stairs. It's every single day, multiple times a day. I will carry the dog up and down the stairs and, make sure I'm with him when he's outside, make sure that he's cared for, make sure that he's, feels safe and stuff like that. Because again, older dog, coyotes, owls, hawks, anything like that, they can still be, gotten by a predator. So you want to really, really protect them. Also, be careful with older dogs around younger dogs, because sometimes younger dogs will display some dominance, will try to become a little bit more pushy with older dogs, and that's not fair, right? You've got to protect your older dog. That's your gig, that's your job, and that's something you're going to definitely want to keep an eye on the whole time. And with older dogs, the other thing you want to look at is, I always say, man, get blood tests done on these dogs regularly, at least maybe once or twice a year, to see where their kidney functions are, their liver function, and all that, because they need to be checked out so that you know that they're okay. You might need to make adjustments in their diet if they have some kidney issues or liver issues or intestinal issues. And knowing that is going to help you have a much more sane life with that dog, because you want to have this dog. I mean, I want Boz to be in my arms the minute he takes his last breath. I want him to be there. I want him to feel loved. I want him to feel appreciated, because he's been such an amazing dog. Now, I've only been back in his life for a couple years, but Bozman, yeah. But he loves to give kisses, obviously. Yes, yeah, he's a good Bozman. He's a Bozman. He loves to give kisses, and he's, again, he's older. So the older dogs have a harder time, and you want to be aware of that. So, look at their food. What kind of food are they having? Oh, Goofy's just crazy for him. Goofy loves me. Oh, God bless you. Hang on, I'm going to have Janet come take him for a little bit. I'll put him in the crate. Hang on, honey, come take Bozman. I think he needs a little break. But he can come back in a minute. There he goes. Oh. Okay, here he goes. So Boz, okay, thank you. And that's the Bozman. So let's keep talking about this. We'll bring Boz back in for the close of the segment. And that's the first time we got to see Janet in a live video here. But vision problems and hearing problems are super common in older dogs, right? And that's going to be something that you're going to want to really think about. You're going to want to learn to address it. So, if you live in a house that has stairs, you're not going to want this dog, walking around and going around on their own, because they can get hurt. And that's a real common thing that'll happen with older dogs, is that they then start to injure themselves for no reason that's normal. In other words, if you had lived in a flat house and you put throw rugs down like my friend Kevin, then you wouldn't have that issue, right? You wouldn't have the issue of them falling downstairs or tripping over stuff or slipping and sliding, because that's all things that makes it really, really hard on the dog. And those are things you're going to want to take into consideration too, that let's say you live in a house with stairs, you're going to want to confine off an area for your older dog to be where the dog is totally safe. Older dogs bark a lot, right? So I've seen this with older beagles and hounds and stuff like that. They just start baying, and Boz is obviously a hound. So that's what they do. And it's something that you just have to kind of settle your mind to, because that's what's going to happen. You can't get mad at them and correct them and put a bark collar. I mean, I put bark collars on every dog I've got, but I would never do it to an older dog because they're not familiar with it, right? This is just their aging process. And if you don't respect it and you don't get it, then I don't want to say you shouldn't have the dog, but you shouldn't have gotten the dog. But what I really want to talk about is the importance of staying the course with older dogs and making it that they stay with you, because there's nothing worse than somebody who dumps an older dog in a shelter. I mean, any dog in a shelter is bad, puppies, middle-aged dogs, but an older dog, especially a dog that's got medical issues or any kind of health issues, whether they're mental or physical, it's so cruel. It's so wrong. I mean, it's just, I do believe there's a special place in hell for people who dump older dogs in a shelter. I really, really believe that. And I've seen it. I've seen people drop old dogs in the front of the shelter and then walk in the back and adopt a puppy. I mean, in no uncertain terms, these people are the lowest scums of the earth to me to be able to do that to a dog. It shouldn't even be permitted. Our political system makes excuses for all these whack jobs and gives them reasons and allows this to happen. It's wrong. It's really, really wrong. A dog is a lifetime commitment. And I always say that. It's a lifetime commitment. If I can't care for my dogs, then I'm going to figure out a way to care for them. In other words, If I run out of money, I'll move into a cheaper apartment. If I run out of time, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out no matter what. I don't understand the idea of, oh, well, we moved and, they don't allow dogs where we moved. Well, I've been to, many of the 50 states in the United States. I've been to several different countries, and I've never seen a country, state, or city that doesn't allow dogs. So you need to, again, commit to this for the long run. Silly was, 9 years old, just under 9 years old, actually, when he died. And I remember I told him when he was young that, the day you can't walk on the beach anymore is the day that I'll carry you on the beach. And I did that. My friend Mike O'Hearn had an old dog. Teddy, I think, was, 18 or something like that. And it was a bigger dog. And Teddy, he carried Teddy the last few days or weeks of the dog's life. My friend Kevin just lost Trooper, this amazing German Shepherd. I mean, I think he spent like $25,000 in his money he didn't have. I mean, he had, but he didn't have to spend on the dog to care for this dog. And I know he would have spent everything he had to save this dog. So the story is that the sadness that goes along with these losses are equated because of the love that these people have for these amazing dogs. And it's a love I have for Boz. I just love him undeniably so much. And, I don't remind him that he was in a shelter. I don't remind him that he's old. I don't remind him he's blind. I don't remind him he's deaf. I just love him. I love him unconditionally. And that's what old dogs need. They need that unconditional love. It's no time to start training dogs, right? If you didn't train your dog its whole life and now a dog is 15 years old and it's peeing on the rug, well, that's your problem, right? It's not even a big deal. If your dog has bladder issues and stuff like that, you can put a diaper on them. You can take them out. You can put them in an area of the house where they can relieve themselves, on wee-wee pads. That's when wee-wee pads come in, by the way, not for puppy training. All those things are important. But this is your responsibility. I mean, you don't really want to put a dog down because they can't hold their bladder. I don't think that's, acceptable per se. I think you need to look at the overall responsibility. If, would you want to be put down because you can't hold your bladder? I mean, it's kind of stupid, right? But what I want to, really focus on again is the health issues. I keep kind of segueing, and I'll probably segue this whole podcast because it's just that way. But the hearing issue is the dog's not going to be able to hear you no matter how high you shout. Sometimes if you can whistle, they can hear higher octave sounds. That will bring the dog back. But tactile touch, keep the dog close to you, keep the dog protected, keep the dog near you. Boz also has bad cataract, so when he gets out in the bright sun, he'll start to shake his head and do all that. And I know that, so I just go over to him and say, "That's a good boy, Boz." I pick him up, I give him a lot of love, and I move him to another area of the yard. He still zips around the yard. Be careful what you have sitting around. Chairs and gates and toys and stuff that they can flip over. If you have rose bushes, be careful. Maybe cordon them off with some baby gates or something like that. And always, always, always keep an eye on your dog. I'll give you a great suggestion. What Janet and I do with Bozman is Boz is always crated when he's not with us, right? So right now you can see he's in Janet's arms right here behind me. You can see it right there. There's beautiful Janet and beautiful Bozman. He's getting a lot of love. But if he's not with us, he's in a crate. And in the crate, he's got some water and he's got a nice little blanket. And sometimes he wee-wees on the blanket. That's just the way it is, right? We take him out for several breaks before we ever leave him, but we come back and he peed in the crate. Who cares? So we clean up, we put another different towel in there, we clean it up, and Boz is just fine. You need to understand that these are your final days with this dog, and this is what you owe him, right? If you had a great time with this dog, if you love this dog, this old age is your chance to say goodbye. There's a biblical thing that my friend Dorian told me about years and years ago, and it said that, and I think I talked about this in the Grieving the Loss of Your Dog podcast, that this getting sick or getting old is God's way of letting us say goodbye, right? In other words, they don't just disappear and die and then you're kind of sucked, dry with this big hole in your heart. But you actually get to say goodbye. You get this closure. I remember when my aunt was dying of cancer earlier this year, I would call her all the time and we would talk about things. I would tell her how much I love her and I would tell her, how important she was to me and how everything's going to be okay when she's gone. And she told me things and I held her hand and I held her, and all these things were so important. So that's what you get to do with your dog when they're old, right? And that's the most important thing you're going to do for your dog. And it's the most important thing you're going to do for yourself because it builds character. People who care for old dogs, are amazing people. They're amazing, amazing people. And I'm not saying that because I care for an old dog. Janet's amazing because Janet has cared for this dog for so long and is sharing him with me because I love him. I just think he's the most fantastic thing in the world. I love Bozman. Also, be aware of, I got a couple of notes here, of diet issues, right? So as the dog gets older, hey Maya, he may or may not be able to eat the food that he normally eats, right? Now you see Maya, which was going outside with Bozman. Now Bozman, loves all the dogs, and all the dogs love Bozman. But Maya tried to play with him a couple of times, and he got scared. So I just tell Maya, hey Maya, just don't go over there, and let the Bozman have his own time outside to pee. And when Janet brings him back in, then Maya can go out. And that's how dogs get. So when they get older, they get cranky. And so sometimes a younger dog doesn't see it as that, and then they get in fights. And you got to protect your dog on those levels. So the diet issues, sometimes, they'll give dogs food that's a little bit lower in protein, a little different blends, more supplements, Metacam. Well, Metacam's a medicine. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But, Dachshund, I always make sure my dogs get Dachshund so they keep good flexibility. They keep moving. Any kind of a glucosamine, MSM blend is really, really important, chondroitin. But supplements are great. Like I would do CBD. I would do, extra fish oils. I would make sure they have plenty of, like I said, the MSM, anything that's going to make their body function better. The other thing that Janet and I always keep in the house is Metacam and, stuff like Pedialyte, something to hydrate the dog. Sometimes they'll get dehydrated. They're older. They forget to drink. You got to keep an eye on them, make sure they drink. You can sometimes put a little tuna fish water in their water to make them drink more, but you don't want them drinking too much, right? So you're going to draw all these lines with the dog. And, Dr. Google is such a great resource, too. You can go online and find out so many amazing things of how to help your dog as they get older and how to give them more of what they need. But I'm going to keep going back to the fact that what older dogs really need is you. More than anything, an old dog needs you. It needs the person that they identify, the person that they know is theirs, to be there for them, to love them, to care for them, to protect them, and to just be present, to just be in the room. When Boz is here and I'm working on the computer and he's sitting there in his crate over my shoulder, he's happy, right? He'll snuggle up and just go to sleep because he wants to know. And dogs, as they lose their senses when they get older, they lose their sense of sight and they lose their sense of hearing. They don't ever, I believe, lose their sense of smell. That's such a powerful sense for them that they maintain that. And that sense allows them to remember familiar people, remember familiar areas and foods and all those things. And that's what makes it great for them, right? So just being close to them, they can sense you and smell you no matter where you are if you're close to them. And that gives them that comfort, that safety, that factor of feeling protected and feeling safe with you. That's all dogs really want. They want to be with you. You're not going to find any friends or husbands or wives that are going to be that giving. Well, maybe Janet, but you're not going to find many people who are going to be that loving and that simple to please as a dog, that they just want to be with you. That's what they want. So, like I said, Boz stays in his crate most of the day, right? And that's not a bad thing because if you look at most of the day, Dwayne-Mater's laying on my side or Goofy's laying behind me. Goofy's right back there and Dwayne-Mater's right down here. And they're just laying there because they want to be close to me. So whether they're free like this or in a crate, it doesn't matter. But putting them in a crate when the dog is older, especially a small dog like Bozman, gives them that protection. So you can put a nice, little bowl in there, get yourself one of those kennel gear bowls, put it on the side of the thing, make sure the dog always has access to water. Put a towel in there. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it's just something soft to lay on and something that, if it gets dirty, you take it out, wash it, and put another one in there. That's really, really important. You can play music. You can do aromatherapy. You can do all those things that, make it a little easier for the dog. You'll know if the dog is deaf. If you go behind and clap and the dog doesn't turn around, you know the dog is starting to get deaf, and you'll start to see the dog's vision going. You'll see that mainly by the way they respond to light and dark, shadows and stuff like that. They'll become startled and try to avoid them when they don't know. You won't see it as much with you as a person because usually the presence of a person, there's an energy level there that they pick up, and there's also a smell that they pick up. So look at the way the dog responds to objects more than the way the dog responds to people. One what am I talking about here? Okay, so the other thing is too is dogs, bigger dogs like Dwayne Mater, Jimmy, Boz, Goofy, and Maya. As they get older, you want to be super careful on slippery floors. Super careful because they will blow out a knee or hurt their backs or their hips. Stairs are super dangerous. Teach your dogs to go slowly downstairs. If they get older, put a towel under their waist and lift them down the stairs, or keep them downstairs and spend more time with them there. It's not worth the injury to shorten their lives, because if they're 10, 12 years old and they have a back injury or a leg injury, it's very unlikely that you're going to want to do a major surgery on them to fix them. So be preventative, think preventatively of how you can avoid those injuries. And stairs are a huge issue for dogs. It's not something they ever deal with in nature. So it's something you're going to want to protect them from, especially falling downstairs or losing their footing on stairs or sliding out on hardwood floors or polished concrete floors. Rugs are great, but I hate rugs because they always smell and they get fleas and stuff like that. But, throw rugs are a great idea. I know Kevin told me that his whole house is just filled with throw rugs and it looks like like the Marrakesh market. But it's just it's what he does because he loves his dog and he wants his dog to be happy and safe and not have a problem walking around. And he's got 3 big German Shepherds, so that's going to be an issue for a dog like that. But the extra time you take with them now is huge. It's a huge component. It's a huge thing for the dog to understand. The stories I always hear of people with their older dogs are, to me, my very, very favorite stories because they just warm my heart. People who love older dogs, there's a special place in heaven for them because I do believe that dogs are angels that kind of come down and are given to us. And when they can give us all the love and the affection and the support we need and the emotional capacity of caring and being nurturing us, that's super powerful. But then when they get older, that's not the time to trade them in. It's just not. It's the time to give them back what they've given us their whole lives. And I think that's a really important component that we kind of overlook sometimes. So be patient with older dogs, right? It's like, you want to be patient with older people. You got to be patient with older dogs because older people can tell you what's wrong. Older dogs can't. They can't tell you that they're aching. They can't tell you that they're confused or that they're scared or anything like that. But you have to be able to tell that by talking to them, by listening to them, by communicating with them in some way. Now, when I say talk to them, I know, you can't have a conversation with them, but you can watch the dynamic of how they're acting, how they're being towards you, how they're listening to you, how they're, if they're in pain. It's obviously not that hard to tell. And have that compassion, right? Have that compassion to take the dog to the vet, have him checked out, see what's wrong with him, treat what's wrong with him to the very, very, very best of your capacity. And when it comes to the point where your dog is suffering and your dog is, irreversibly ill with something that causes them pain, you need to be the person. You need to be the mensch. You need to be the man or the woman or whatever it is. I don't care what it is sexistly. You need to be the human being that has that compassion to be brave enough to give your dog the final gift, and that is to take them and be with them when they take that last breath, right? Because people who give up their dogs and just kind of like take them to the vet and drive away or dump them in a shelter or do anything like this, it's the lowest scum of the earth to be able to do that to an animal. Both of my dogs who died, Silly and Boots, both died in my arms. They both took their last breath with me holding them, and I buried both of them with my own hands, and I gave them that dignity. And now Boots I only had for a couple months. Silly I had for, I think, just over 8 years. And I wouldn't trade any moment of that for anything in the world because giving them that dignity is what's so important. So when they're older, it's your time to give back. So as a young puppy, you're having a great time. The dog is there to have fun with you, like Dwayne Mater just wants to nuzzle and play and lick and be so affectionate and give me so much love. Now, Goofy's given me that love for his whole life, and I've gotten so much out of him. I've had so much fun competing with him and training with him and doing demos with him. And, he built my career as a dog trainer. And I swear to God, when that day comes, those last few days, that I am going to be with him every one of those days, just like I was with Silly for those last 30 days, that I loved him. I gave him structure. I gave him corrections. Hey. I'm strong with my dogs. I'm a leader to my dogs. I I love my dogs more than anything. I love them because I give them that structure. They listen to me and they understand me because we have that dynamic and that relationship. And that is, part of it is dominance, is making sure they know that they're controlled and that they know that they're loved, because the love comes second to the dog. The first thing is always going to be structure. Safety and structure comes first because it's a feral nature. It's an instinctual nature for the dog to feel safe. And that's any animal, including humans. If humans couldn't communicate verbally as well, it would be the same thing. The first thing you want is you want to feel safe before you feel loved. If somebody loves you and you're getting shot at, and love isn't going to help you that much. You'd rather be with the guy who can shoot the people who are shooting at you and then love you, or the woman who can shoot at the people and then love you. But let me see what else I had here. I think that's about it. The other thing too I want to talk about is if you have an old dog and you bring a new puppy in, be fair to the old dog. Right? The new puppy doesn't control the roost here. Like, in other words, Dwayne comes in, Dwayne doesn't control anything. Dwayne comes last on the totem pole, and the reason he comes last on the totem pole is because we love him so much that when he gets older, he's going to get that same respect. The puppy doesn't come in and control the house. Never. Nope. Never happens. Puppy is on the bottom of the totem pole. Everything in this house, from Janet and my perspective, is Boz, then Goofy, Maya, Jimmy, Dwayne, right? It goes all the way down the line. And because of that, the pack is balanced. Everybody gets along. There's no issues. There's no alphas in this house. Only me. I'm the only alpha. I'm the bad dog. Janet knows that. And I don't know if she can hear me in the background while I'm doing the podcast. But that makes it fair to all the dogs, makes it fair to everybody in the house. There's no struggle for control or alpha, anything like that here. A lot of people say, well, you have to understand the structure of your pack. I understand the structure of my pack, and the structure of the pack is that I'm on top and everybody's underneath me. I do rank them by age and that's just out of respect to them. Simple as that. Has nothing else to do with anything. But old dogs, they kind of rely on you to protect them, and that's super, super, super important. That they're honored, that they're respected, and that they're loved in their final days, weeks, months, or years, whatever that is. So as you see your dog getting older, as you see your dog getting weaker, you need to pick up the pieces and be stronger and be there for that dog and give that dog the dignity and the honor and the love that they've earned over their whole life. And if you're one of those people who goes and rescues and adopts older dogs and keeps them, God bless you, because I think you're doing an amazing, amazing, amazing thing. And if you're one of those people who has a puppy and keeps it all the way until it's older, God bless you too, because you're doing an amazing, amazing, amazing thing. And if you're one of those people that dumps old dogs in the shelter, I have zero empathy for you or respect for you, because you've got to do this. If you have an old dog and you've got to dump it in the shelter, put the dog down or try to find someone who will give the dog a life. Do that. Make that your mission. If you can't keep that dog, make it your mission, like it's your last breath, to find somebody to care for that dog. And then go on with your life. Because if you can't care for the dog, you can't care for yourself. And that's really all I got to say on the topic. Like I say, I love older dogs. I always say I love old dogs. I hate puppies. But you want to really look at the idea of how much a dog gives you through their life, and even an old dog. Boz gives me so much. Honey, bring Boz over. We got to say goodbye to everybody. And how much Boz has given me. We're going to sign off with the Bozman. See, Boz is wearing his very fancy harness here. Oh my God, I got the Bozman. Okay. And we're going to sign off here with the Bozman. Boz, can you say something to the nice people out there? Oh, he would just rather give his dad kisses. Because I love him. He smells so good. He smells, I don't know, like seaweed or something. He's the most loving dog on the planet. I love Bozman with all my heart. I'm grateful to Janet for bringing him into my life. And I hope I would wish, my greatest wish for all of you is to share the love of an old dog like the Bozman. Signing off. See you next week. Take care. Hang on.